Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you an update to one of my most heinous ideas. So, for quite some time in 40k, there has been a thing plaguing the game. We saw it with Sisters, we saw it with Thousand Suns, and mind you, we've seen this even further back. I'm just talking about as far as Pariah. Um, we've seen it with Thousand Suns. We're currently seeing it with Death Guard and Imperial Guard, and people speculate that we'll see it once more with the Elves once they finally get their codex. That thing is indirect fire. And if you can't beat them, join them. Or you would like to. Unfortunately, as Tyranids, we only have two options for indirect fire. That is Hive Guard, and that is the Byrivores. So, that means I really have to think about how to beat them. And to that, I've been playing around with the idea of lone ops, such as Parasite of Mortrex. Why? Need something to hold your backfield that won't pop to indirect fire from something like a Plague Burst Crawler. So, a lone op, that's a character, can hold an enhancement, get my value. Seems alright enough, right? Seems alright enough. And when I was thinking about the Parasite of Mortrex, of course, for this idea or this task specifically, I considered Synaptic Nexus for Psychostatic Disruption to, 12 inches, no deep zone, no deep strike zone, right? Then I remembered that requires me to play Synaptic Nexus. And quite frankly, I'm not a fan of that idea in the current time. So then, you go on to what else could benefit from Biovores in the Parasite of Mortrex. Assimilation Swarm. I can generate Ripper Swarms, and my Biovore can shoot out Spore Mines. And hell, if Tyrant Guard can work in Assimilation Swarm, why can't Hive Guard? This is where that train of thought stopped. I'm not sure how far that goes because it seems like, from what I'm understanding from people that play the Tyrant Guard list, the clock might be ticking on that idea. So, let's go to one of my most heinous ideas and figure out if it's better or worse. Which is, I shoot you, you don't shoot me. You see, this idea is something I thought was just, too diabolical. But after reviewing quite some competitive lists, you see it in CSM, into which you call yourself Nurgle unit, Nurgle aligned, you take that lone op strat over there in Pack Bound Zealots, if I remember correctly. And guess what? Now you have a Vindicator with lone op. I just went back and looked at Canoptic Court again. And now you have a Doomstalker with lone op. And if you get too close, well, fire Overwatch. Hey, we have something like that. But instead of making it lone up, give it indirect fire. Or the indirect fire weapon, Hive Guard. If this unit is within range of an objective marker, that hits on 4s. Now, you only have 24 shots with the Hive Guard Impaler Cannon. So let's try to make it count with something like +1 to wound, and going back to the idea in Assimilation Swarm, Broodguard Impulse, right? I throw out a Ripper Swarm, you kill the Ripper Swarm, now you're +1 to wound for indirect fire. And if you finally manage to kill a Hive Guard, I bring it back. Or so I thought. What if I have several opportunities for things to be +1 to wound per turn, and you have very little chance to stop me from shooting you? Even if it's just 24 shots per unit, what if it's just better than what you have to deal with right now? I'm back at Vanguard Onslaught, into which, thankfully, Hive Guard are infantry, and yeah, they don't benefit from the lone op strat over here, unseen lurkers. They do benefit from invisible hunter. So if anybody gets a little bit too close, not only do I have hypersensory cilia for, 2 CP reactive move for them being infantry once more, I have access to invisible hunter to bring them up, put them in reserves, bring them down later. Maybe a board edge. Maybe it's your board edge. Maybe it's mine. We'll see. But going past that, I've talked about this idea before for Tyranids, into which I shoot you, you don't shoot me. You see, I've talked about this with the Harpy. For 215 points, I like the fact that this monster has hover and is a Vanguard Invader, that I can shoot out something like the Twin Stranglethorn cannons, place some Spore Mines to get in your way, and shoot you at a distance that you can't shoot me thanks to, once again, unseen lurkers. But it's time to switch things up and reshuffle this idea a little bit, because I've been adding some speed into another one of my lists, and we'll talk about that one in due time. I've recently covered that topic in a different way, so it's a little too close to release that right now. We'll see. But taking the Harpy out, what could I add? The Winged Tyranid Prime and the Tyranid Warriors. I've talked about the thing with Warrior Bioform Onslaught is that if you make the ranged warriors any better, I'm taking them over to Vanguard Onslaught. But I don't think I've really gone in depth why. Well, attaching a Winged Tyranid Prime to the warriors gives you sustained hit 1, and it also turns them into Vanguard Invader, or a Vanguard Invader unit. So, with 36-inch guns that are now, hopefully, before the edition ends, hitting on 3s, I get to have a lone op unit with unseen lurkers, with sustained, hidden on 3s, 36-inch range weapons, right? But even if that's not the case, I can still use Surprise Assault. Your shooting phase or the fight phase just after a Vanguard Invader unit from your army has selected its targets. Target that Vanguard Invader unit. Select one enemy unit that was selected as the target of one or more of your unit's attacks. They must take a Battle Shock test. You get +1 to hit. If they fail the Battle Shock test, it's +1 to wound as well. So, sustained, +1 to hit, possibly +1 to wound. Lone up for the crackback. Because I don't know about you, but I much rather have you can't hit me at all versus -1 to wound. That's just me. And then, they are still infantry, and they're Vanguard Invader infantry. So, if people get too close to them, as well as the idea that if you got too close to Hive Guard, I can pick up these units at the end of my opponent's fight phase, and move them around, right? But to keep them a little bit more safe, I have other lone ops in the way, such as Neurolictors, that if I give them a Battle Shock test in the area, such as something from like Surprise Assault, yeah, +1 to wound from that situation as well. And anybody can capitalize on it too. Furthermore, to stop them from getting to those special lone ops there, we have Gargoyles, Lictors, and Von Ryan Sleepers. How the Gargoyles? Well, turn 1, we have Seated Broods, and to which I can bring in 2 Vanguard Invader units from reserves a turn earlier than you're supposed to, thanks to Seated Broods. Thankfully, Gargoyles are Vanguard Invaders. So, between 10 to 40 models, turn 1 are stopping your opponent from getting to your Neurolictors. And then once they get past the Gargoyles, they have to get to the Lictors and the Von Rheinsleepers, who, Von Rheinsleepers, get heroic intervention for free and can do it even if somebody else did it that phase. And guess what? The Lictors and the Von Rheinsleepers have fights first. So, you charge in, finally getting your way through the gargoyles. You then run into my Lictor that has fights first, and I bring in my Von Rheinsleepers that have fights first as well. So, good luck making it through all of this. But here's the other thing. If I want to shoot you and you can't shoot me between lone opt ranged warriors, or indirect firing hive guard units, or indirect firing biovores, what else is there? Well, the biovores can put spore mines in the way, much to what I said with the harpy. So steel can't get to anything that you want to get to. But also, the other thing we have about this is that in Vanguard Onslaught, all of your Tyranid units are eligible to charge in a turn in which they fell back. So no matter what tied up who, I can fall back, shoot you with something like indirect fire, or once again, the ranged warriors, and then charge. So then I get my fights first, because of the charge bonus, and then you're engaged with me, and then I fight you, and then on your turn, if you have fallback and charge, I still get my fights first, and if you don't, I get my fights first. So, yeah, just a little bit of an annoying piece of shit. Then we also have Hive Tyrant, possibly with Tyrant card, to make this unit another possibly infantry unit if you want to pick up and down, but also the Hive Tyrant to give the lethals to combo with the sustained from the Winged Tyranid Prime for the ranged warriors. And of course, if you want rerolls, add an exocrine or two. So, there's your other chances at damage, as well as if your Hive Tyrant is around your Hive Guard, they also can get lethals for this indirect fire situation. So that makes your 24 shots count a bit more. So there's that as well. And for the final one, we have Death Leaper to trigger even more Battle Shock tests. But also, fights first infiltrating lone up as well. So between Death Leaper, possibly Parasite of Mortrex with Hunting Grounds, Neuronode if you need to shuffle some things around, and Surprise Assault, and Neurolictors, your opponent should be Battle Shocked, +1 to wound, and not able to touch any of the shit that they probably want to touch. So yeah, that's the heinous idea I have for you today, just to be a variation of what I've liked in the past, and probably a bit more reliable, a bit cheaper on some units depending if you want to compare the Harpy to a unit of Hive Guard. There you go. And actually, if you want to compare the Harpy to a unit of ranged warriors with Winged Tyranid Prime, also cheaper. So, it's safe to say, in some aspects, it's cheaper than bringing the Harpy. Well, it's actually definitely cheaper than bringing the Harpy, but if you attach a enhancement to the Winged Tyranid Prime, that's a different conversation. You understand the point. But yeah, say all that to say, indirect fire, if you can't beat them, might as well join them. And if you can't join them, might as well beat them. But what's better is beating them and joining them. So yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.